Hello everybody and welcome to the Thursday edition of Video Clips. I have a couple of topics to cover and we're going to start with who is responsible for the obesity epidemic. Let's start with the points that we all agree on because this usually generates a whole lot of debate back and forth. First point we agree on, obesity is a problem in the United States, actually becoming a problem worldwide. It's not getting better, in fact it's getting worse. Obesity is a health risk. It adversely affects the quality of people's lives who are obese, and it's expensive. Okay, so we all agree there. Here's where the disagreement starts. Whose fault is it? According to news articles, it's regulations and big food companies, big agriculture, genes, parents, advertising, and the government, all to blame. But interestingly enough, according to a recent study, 80% of the people surveyed claim that individuals are primarily responsible for obesity. The second most likely group to be blamed was parents, and then after that it was food. But there's obviously a huge disconnect between what most members of the public think about how to solve this issue, which is personal responsibility, and most of the efforts being contemplated or currently being implemented to try and address the issue. It seems that most discussions about the obesity epidemic are focused on revamping food labels, posting calories on restaurant menus, changing subsidies for farmers, developing drugs that override our genes, and other things that those affected, the members of the public, say really don't matter as much as personal responsibility. Now, I think we would be smarter to focus on personal responsibility because most people do understand that every single day they make a lot of choices about diet and lifestyle, and they can, if they want to, make different ones. Brenna Ellison, one of the researchers who was involved in the study, said, and this is a quote, "What is the alternative to personal responsibility? Do we want consumers to feel that they have no control over their choices? In fact, the idea that government and your genes are responsible for your weight, it feeds into that helpless victim mentality that I've always been really resistant to in my discussions with people. I think that healthcare should be about empowering people to do better and to make better choices for themselves. So I dislike the message that somebody else outside of all of us has to solve this problem. Now, while I don't hold any hope that this is going to make a big difference or something constructive will come out of it, in a perfect world, we'd start to ignore all these silly government initiatives, subsidies, programs, and mandates, which really are nothing more than useless chatter that distracts from the real change and that we need to begin and truthful information. We get rid of advocacy groups who are invested in their ideology and continue to operate within paradigms that have already been proven not to work. And that's everything from teaching people who are obese and overweight to just accept their size and not to pay attention to this issue, to people who are all focused on reductionist theories about fortifying foods and drugs that override genes. We'd forget about all that kind of stuff. The food companies actually have been saying for a lot of years that people are responsible for their own choices. And it actually appears, and I think this is sort of a strange, ironic thing, that most people in the public actually agree with this. So if that's the case, then what we need to do is focus our attention on showing people how to improve their lives with better diet and lifestyle and how to take control of their own health. It works a whole lot faster, the results are better, and it's a much better alternative than trying to wait for the government or some outside force out there to solve our problem. Let's just have 300 and some million American people just decide that they're going to be responsible for their own health and their own health outcomes. Okay, we're going to finish the week with an article that I'm going to try not to laugh out loud when I read this to you and relate this to you. I often talk, but I think humor is a good thing sometimes, so that's why I chose this to share with you. I often talk to alternative practitioners or holistic practitioners who are a little upset because they feel that they're not being taken seriously by the medical profession or that media stories paint them in a bad light. And there's no question, and I just want to say this for the record, that anybody who stands up to traditional medicine faces all kinds of uphill battles. I mean, Dr. T. Colin Campbell, Dr. Esselstyn, Dr. McDougall, and I have faced ridicule. We've been marginalized by our peers, and in some cases, legal action has been taken as a result of going against the grain. I have my own little battle with a government agency. But the reason we're still here, in addition to being strong and dedicated, and I might add a little bit insane, is that we've been careful to stick with the science. I'm not interested in being an early responder, which some practitioners refer themselves to, anxious to latch on to every new idea that comes my way, but rather being an accurate responder, waiting until evidence shows that a particular path is the right thing to do. And I think the alternative health community would be taken a whole lot more seriously if they could discipline themselves to adhere to this rule too. Now, I read with both shock and dismay an article written by a medical doctor and published in an alternative health publication called Optimizing Metabolism. The doctor uses the theme of being a change agent in making her recommendations, change referring to literally coins. I'm not kidding, and unfortunately, neither was she. Now, the article starts with a recommendation to eat nori, since women in particular have low levels of minerals these days, according to her. While acknowledging that there's no real way to measure mineral levels accurately, she proposes instead that people can taste their way to the right mineral levels by purchasing sesame toasted nori sheets and eating them. If they taste delicious, this is a sign that your body needs iodine and selenium. Eat them daily, and when you start to like them less, then you'll know that your mineral levels have been restored. Now, in case you're skeptical about all this, she has some backup documentation here. She cites the fact that Glacier National Park is featured on the 2011 quarter. Mountain goats in this park descend to Logan Pass to lick salt, and when they're satisfied, they go back up the mountain. Gosh, I didn't know that, and what a great scientific breakthrough. Now, this gem is followed by another tip that advises people to cook with saturated fat in the summer. The reason is that coconut oil becomes solid when the temperature drops, which is when you should start cooking with monounsaturated fats. Of course, coins document the case once again. Coconut palms are on the quarters of American Samoa coins, North Mariana Islands, and Florida, which are tropical climates. And this is evidence that we should use saturated fat in the winter, unsaturated in the summer. I mean, there was a lot of confusion about that, and who would have known that I could have, in my very own wallet, figured this whole thing out, right? Rice is a great grain to eat, particularly if you're gluten intolerant, this doctor says. While we have all thought of it as more of an Asian type food, rice is ingrained, she actually used that term, in the Arkansas Quarter, which lets us know that it is indeed an American grain. Now, salmon is advised for consumption, particularly by women, and the explanation actually goes beyond just coins. Several U.S. coins, for the record, including Washington State's quarter, feature salmon jumping from lakes, but the real reason to eat salmon is that grizzly bears living in Denali Park do not have access to salmon. They're smaller and they have fewer baby bears than the bears living in the coastal area, which is proof positive that women need salmon. There's more, but I think you get the idea. Just start looking at the change that you've collected, the coins, and you'll know everything you need to know about what to eat. And if you want to learn more from this incredible scientist, she's on the faculty of Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, where she's researching nutrition and disease prevention. I'm sure our taxpayers' dollars are supporting this valuable research, and my gosh, it just makes me proud to be an American. I mean, I'm flabbergasted. I guess I should be beyond being shocked, but I probably never will be. All right, on that note, we will end for today and for the week. As usual, pass this on to anybody who you think might enjoy watching it, and I will speak to you again next Tuesday.